But let's move into the other side of the trade. Obviously, we talked about Philadelphia. We talked about the Sixers for 55 minutes with Jake. We want to thank him again. And you can become a patron at patreon.com/MosoPodcast. But let's jump in on the other side and talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves. They give up Jimmy Butler and Justin Patton. They get Robert Covington, Dario Saric, a 2022 second-round pick, and Jared Bayless. So that is the whole trade. Jared Bayless' one-year deal. What's up?
Big winners there.
Yeah. Jared Bayless' one-year deal will expire this year, so that's going to free up cap space for them. And they get two guys who can be in their starting lineup in Robert Covington and Dario Saric. Let's first grade this for Minnesota, because obviously not only you're grading it on the trade basis, but then also the timing. And should this been a deal made sooner? With the deals on the table that we've heard with Miami and Houston, is this the right deal? Overall, what do you think about this, and what grade would you give this trade for Minnesota?
I think the grade is probably somewhere in the C minus range. Like, it took forever to get done. This seems like an interesting package put together, because you get Robert Covington, a player who is, yes, All-NBA defense first team, I believe, this past year. He is a streaky three-point shooter, but he is the 3-and-D guy that most teams are looking for. And you get Dario, who he's a 4, he can shoot, he's smooth, but he can't play lick of defense. He tries. You get that going for you.
He's also been bad this year.
He's been terrible.
And as Jake is complaining, he's thinking it's about his Euro time. He's playing a lot of basketball.
Playing a lot of basketball. So maybe just a little worn out, which will work out great for playing under Tom Thibodeau. Those minutes are great. Perfect. I think for me it just comes down to the fact that you wanted to get some great value out of Jimmy Butler, and you got a long-term contract with a potential 3-and-D guy, and you got a 4 who is offensively gifted and doesn't play great defense. How does that fit in with your current team? Because you have Cat, who doesn't play defense and is offensively gifted. So you got two great, a 4-5 combo, and it's just be like an empty lane for the for the opposing center and power forward out there. It's just like, well, there's the basket. It's all yours, because we're not going to do much to stop you.
Dave's got Overlord on the mind, talking about enemies.
Yeah, great movie, by the way. Check out Overlord.
Not sponsored. What's the grade for Minnesota Timberwolves?
At first I kind of want to give it an F, but I'm gonna
BPU, man.
I'm gonna go up. I'm gonna say D-. And the reason being is, there's value in Dario and Rocco, but the thing that I look at is, first off, you didn't get a first-round pick, which is crazy. Second off, I look at both of the other deals, Heat and Rockets, and I know that the Rockets one
could have got Kelly Olynyk.
Well, people are going to say, for the Rocket one, they didn't want to send them to a Western Conference rival. Why? You're not competing with them. You're nowhere near the finals, so why should you care?
Dang. Yeah.
Number 2, you're going to get 4 first-round picks. Yeah, the first 2 might not be that good, depending on how they're spaced out, but Chris Paul won't be playing well. That Rockets team might come down in a few years. Those last 2 might be actual first-round picks that you can use, where it's like we'd be looking at it going,
be Brooklyn-style picks.
Exactly. The Rockets would be like, man, why did we make that trade? And then you got Miami, which had first-round picks in it. And that's the thing I look at, where it's like, to me, with this deal, what it tells me, they're not going to fire Tom Thibodeau. And that is why this is an F. I'm downgrading it back again to an F, because if they were going to take
30 seconds later, just...
Exactly. I'm going to flip-flop in my head. I'm going to say an F.
You can trust Ricky Widmer's opinion. It's never
this means that they're not going to get rid of Tom Thibodeau, because why would you add players that Dave goes, well, how do they fit in? Well, obviously, you think actual NBA players are going to fit in better than, hey, let's just take draft picks, and whoever the next coach is, they can help us pick who's going to be this team.
We'll be getting into the whole Thibodeau thing, because that's why I wanted to make this a whole separate topic, because you have the Thibodeau thing, you have the obviously how this core will work together, what's the expectation for this team, and then also what's the future
and
for
I
this
know
team.
I'm foreshadowing here. Pat, I'm working with him to get him on here. He wants to talk about in the future if Tom Thibodeau should even be a coach in the NBA. Yeah. So, there's that too. But I look at this and I look at this deal and I say, Tom Thibodeau's not getting fired, because they're taking veterans that maybe he can help win now and fit his system, rather than a blanket of picks for a new coach to come in and kind of rework this canvas.
Here's the thing, is you say veterans, and I don't think that's fully wrong, because they have been in the league. Dario was drafted in 2014, like Jimmy Butler, and Rocco's been in the league since 2013. But you look at them; they're still. Robert Covington's 27, and he's still in his prime, and he's still going to be good for the next 5 years. And he's under contract for 4 years, and it's a great contract to have him under. You're paying him. I think it's a good contract, in my opinion.
Right now, it's
4
a good
years.
contract.
I think it's $47 million. Yep. Even at that high end, which I think the back end is going to be like $12 million a year. I still think that's good price for a 3-and-D starter. I mean, you're looking at deals like Courtney Lee right now, and he's making $12 million a year. I'd much rather be playing Robert Covington $12 million a year than a guy like Courtney Lee. Like, it's not a bad contract compared to other contracts that have been signed recently. I think it's a good contract for the player you're getting. It's not crazy amount. If it's $12 million, it's not really killing you.
No, with the inflation that we're going to see in the salary cap for the teams, I think you're right, actually. That's probably a pretty great contract.
And then with Dario, he's only 24 years old. And yes, obviously he hasn't been playing great this year, but maybe he needs to change of scenery. Maybe he needs a different role because maybe he wasn't going to work well with Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. Maybe he needs to be, put on a team with, Derrick Rose that's going to help him, I don't know how. But maybe he just needs to change of scenery is the point. Yeah. So I don't think it's a horrible return. Obviously there could have been better returns. I like this more actually than the I like this more than the Houston Rocket return because you might get Eric Gordon. You might get, I think PJ Tucker.
Well, out there. They weren't giving up both of them at the same time. It was you'll get a Marquise Chris or Brandon Knight.
The idea was the 4 first-round picks. Yeah. And although that sounds great in theory, if we're talking about 2023 and 2025 first-round picks, how is that going to help Karl-Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins now? Because when those kick in, that's going to be in 5 years. And Wiggins going to be, I think, 30 at that time. Or maybe I'm doing my math wrong. He's going to be like 27, 28. Yeah. Like, he's going to be a little bit older, and it's going to be into the part where he needs to win now. And Cat, I think, is 21, so he'll be like 26, 27. Yeah. That's a long time to wait to then draft a kid who you're going to need to even wait longer for them to hit their peak. So, like, even whatever the math is, they're going to be near the end of their prime or just in their prime.
They'll be in their prime. They'll both be in their prime. The problem is that, like you said, it's the how quickly can a rookie contribute to a team that's in win-now mode.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But does that mean that they can then flip that pick for a star to help add to this team to compete?
But do we trust the Minnesota Timberwolves front office to do that? No. And also, do we trust them to build homegrown talent? Not really, because although Karl-Anthony Towns was the number 1 pick and the for sure number 1 pick in that draft, he hasn't been, the star that we've been promised. Obviously, with his inconsistency, he has shown the talent, and it hasn't been a bad pick, but also we have expected a lot more than Karl-Anthony Towns has shown us. And we look at Andrew Wiggins. Yes, he was Rookie of the Year, but again, we expect more from Andrew Wiggins, and really, outside of those two, the only other homegrown talent star that they've had is Kevin Love, and they got rid of him. They haven't been
and
a
also
team.
Zach LaVine, they got rid of him.
But he wasn't great.
No, but I'm saying, like, we're seeing what he could have been. If they would have just hung on to him, maybe this is a different T-Wolves team.
But I don't think, my point is, I don't think they would have been able to do that because I don't think they can grow the talent. That's my point, is throughout my life, KG was drafted before me. So you're saying the homegrown talent that they've had is Kevin Garnett, Kevin Love, and then Andrew Wiggins and Karl-Anthony Towns. They don't have a good track record of building up prospects.
So you're saying those are the only two that have been good or great while on the T-Wolves?
Who have been grown in who have been drafted by the Timberwolves and grown into stars. Well, Kevin Love, Andrew Wiggins, Karl-Anthony Towns, and Kevin Garnett. They have not had a great track record of building stars, so I don't trust them giving them 4 first-round draft picks, especially if Tom Thibodeau is running basketball operations over there.
And the thing you say about the first-round picks, I get. But maybe it's because in my mind, now that Jimmy's off this team, I don't think that with Wiggins and Cat, if you were to ask me in the next, after they're done with their primes, will a Wiggins-Cat-led T-Wolves team be a playoff team and be a team that we talk about much like we do, for the East, Raptors, Bucks, Celtics, 76ers? No. I don't look at them as a championship-level team with being the building pieces. I think they'll be maybe at best they cracked the 7th seed.
That's fine to think that, but my point is I don't think they have. You're
literally trading away a draft pick that someone they just selected in the draft a year ago, and Justin Patton, who's just
garbage.
He's completely overwhelmed with injuries. You have a big man who has injuries. It's just a bad, it's a bad set of circumstances. So again, they've missed on yet another draft pick, and that was one half of the Jimmy Butler deal. To be fair,
I'm not trying to be rude towards, and also you also gave up your 7th pick, and who was Lauri Markkanen. You passed up the ability to take a player. Yeah. So your draft evaluation was not telling you that this player was worth holding on to, or at least any player in that range. Whether it was you're going with Lauri Markkanen or anyone who went behind him, like a Donovan Mitchell. Yeah. You passed up the opportunity to take a Donovan Mitchell, to take a Lauri Markkanen. You passed up that opportunity. Yeah. So your draft evaluation has been poor. Your draft evaluation has been poor because you took Ricky Rubio and Johnny Flynn in the same draft as Steph Curry. Come on. We have not seen good drafting come out of Minnesota outside of their one pick of Kevin Garnett and Kevin Love.
Like, are Minnesota Timberwolves like low key Kangs? Like, are they on the same level?
They're worse than the Kings.
Wow.
I mean, haven't had the franchise success as the Kings have.
I mean, the Kings right now are playing really well. So,
but then even then, in my lifetime, the Kings have had more success than the Minnesota Timberwolves.
That's true.
They went to the final. They had a 14-year playoff drought. The Kings didn't have that, and the Kings 2002 team was one of my favorite teams of all time, and they got hosed in the Western Conference Finals against the Lakers by the refs. So again, like they've had more success in my lifetime since 1997 to 2018.
They also had Jason Williams.
Yep.
White chocolate.
Yeah, this is coming. I'm trying to make a point, so let me fucking finish. I haven't given my grade yet. My point is that I'm not trusting the Minnesota Timberwolves with 4 first-round picks. That's my point. So I like the idea of bringing in Rocco and Dario, guys who are have gone through a system, have grown a little bit, and they could still grow more. But also they're guys that can be plugged into a starting lineup. Now I like that Miami Heat deal more, but apparently they pulled out Josh Richardson.
Yeah.
There was the whole deal. We don't know what the full offer was from Miami. So I like this deal from Minnesota. That's why I'm going to give it a C+ to a B-. But the reason it's not an A, because I think it has the potential to be an A, is because it should have happened before the season started.
Yeah.
Thibodeau was too set in his ways to get rid of Butler. We all knew it wasn't going to work, and it took him 9 games to realize it wasn't going to work. It took Jimmy Butler forcing himself on the bench to get this deal done. And Thibodeau was too hard-headed to get a better deal because possibly they could have gotten a first-round pick out of this.
Well,
but
let
me finish. Thibodeau was too hard-headed to get this deal done because he wanted to change Jimmy's mind, but Jimmy's mind was made up, and he was too stupid to realize that. So it's Thibodeau's fault that this deal wasn't better than it could have been. It's
like that guy and that girl where it's like the guy's like, no, I can make it work. This can work. And the girl's already checked out. She's just like, you know what? This ain't going to work. I'm going, no, I can make it work. I can make it work. And Thibodeau was that guy.
And Thibodeau proposed, and Jimmy was like, nah, fine.
I don't even think Thibodeau proposed.
Dude.
It was just a dating thing of like, I can make this work. I can make this work. And then it just didn't work where everyone else is like, dude, just leave. Just leave. It's not good. We know this is going to end wrong, and it ended wrong.
Do you think it did enough damage? Like, do you think the damage is too much at this point on the Timberwolves team and like the locker room and everything? Like, you can't just move him out of town and everything's going to be perfect tomorrow. Like, that's he has messed up Cat. He has messed up Wiggins. Like, their team synergy is gone. So what are we gonna see out of them? Like, as far as their teamwork, like, do you think it's as easy as Jimmy Butler's gone and the team's gonna be all fine tomorrow?
I think of my mentality, and I know mine is not the same as them, but I would hope that for that locker room for like Cat and Wiggins, it'd just be like they sit down in the locker room next to each other and go, thank God he's gone, and they just bond over. Like, thank God he is out of here because you hated him, I hated him. Now we can work together and we can try to make this team right. I don't think that's going to happen, and I think this is going to be a bad year for the T-Wolves, and I think what should happen is Thibodeau should be gone, so hey, let's bring in a coach that can fix this.
All right, before we get into the Thibodeau thing, because it's going to happen, I think I'm in somewhat of agreement with Ricky, but it's not really because of Cat and Wiggins coming together. I think that Thibodeau has done at least a good enough job to bring veterans around there to keep them focused.
Like Derrick Rose.
Who's been a very big bright spot for the Timberwolves so far. They still have Luol Deng, and I know we can make fun of him for that contract he signed. Dude got paid 4 years and $72 million for a reason. It was a bad mistake, but also this guy knows how to be a professional, and he can help them be professional. Same with Taj Gibson as well. Did they ever sign Noah? Or no, he's still free.
No, Noah's still free.
No, it's just a joke. But I still
Noah's
think
at the Bulls game, standing out.
I still think that they have enough players where now they're pretty much looking at Cat and Wiggins and saying, all right, guys, you got kicked around. Now it's time to answer, step up, and we're going to let you do that. Because I think D Rose will let Cat and Wiggins do that. We saw Cat just have a fantastic game with Jimmy Butler on the floor. He popped off for 39 and 19. Maybe that's a bright sign to come. Maybe Wiggins, who has had up and down games but has had some nice shines and flashes this year, maybe he takes us as a way of saying, all right, now it's my team. Let's run with this. So I think it is ultimately a good thing for the Timberwolves. I think obviously we have to see how it fully plays out. But I think weirdly enough, this could be a great kick in the ass for the Timberwolves, not only from ownership in Glenn Taylor's mindset of, hey, maybe we need to reevaluate Tom Thibodeau's position with our team, but also I think it's a great kick in the ass to the locker room because now you have enough veterans to bring these guys together.
They're already veteran heavy.
No, but I'm thinking,
their best players are young though.
But that's what I'm saying is keep those young players focused keep them together. Obviously they had a crazy 9 games and a crazy past month.
Yeah.
The veterans will be able to keep them together, keep them focused on playing basketball, and it will take off some of that pressure, but hopefully it gives them more of an edge is what I'm saying.
Do you think that this will truly be Cat and Wiggins' team, or do you think it's still going to be Tom Thibodeau and the Bulls? Because that, in my mind, that locker room is still split, and you have too much of a vet-heavy presence. Tom Thibodeau doesn't like young kids, so it's impressive that Josh Okogie is doing as well as he is on that team, which, credit to them, that's the one thing that he's not there yet, but
that's true.
That's the one young, promising guy outside of Cat and Wiggins.
Yeah.
Good draft pick. But we haven't seen Keita Bates-Diop at all, and he's a guy who was already seasoned. He played a couple of years in college, and we expect him to be a guy who, second-round pick, but could easily step into a second unit and make an impact, and we have barely seen him play this season. Do you think that it's just Thibodeau is too locked in on his guys, his veterans? I mean, for Christ's sake, Jamal Crawford played fucking 30 minutes a game last year for no reason, and that's my fear is we want this to be Wiggins and Cat's team. Totally. The route is clear for you. There's no excuse now, and I bet you it comes back to being it's Rose's team. It's going to end up being it's Rose and Taj are going to be the faces of this team again. Even though Wiggins and Cat had performances,
I'm gonna cut you off.
The locker room's still there.
I disagree with you because although Derrick Rose wasn't playing to the level he was last year,
right.
When we did see Jimmy Butler go down, it was Cat and Wiggins teams again during that span of February 24th to April 5th. Cat and Wiggins did take over that team. I think they went 8-7 in that 15th game stretch, and I got to recount and everything.
Team.
But
that's what they are.
But they still were getting that usage. They were still getting those minutes, and they were still being leaned on as the guys. And I think maybe from a leadership role, maybe they're not going to be the leaders because you have D Rose and Taj Gibson. But I don't think we're going to see Taj Gibson and Derrick Rose getting crazy usage because Jimmy Butler's off the team. The guys on the floor and performance-wise will be Karl-Anthony Towns and Wiggins. They're going to be playing through them. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing that they're not going to be leaders because that's a lot for Karl-Anthony Towns to handle right now because I don't think he can handle that position right now. And maybe Wiggins is ready to do so. Maybe that kick in the ass from Butler made him want to become a leader. We'll have to see. But I think leadership-wise, it's still going to be on D Rose and Taj Gibson. I think it should be that way. Ricky, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I kind of want to agree with Dave because the thing that was going through my mind, the analogy, it's think about that old rock group from the 70s and the 80s. Yeah, we're going to go on tour again in the 2000s, and we got a new drummer over here. Cat and Wiggins they're the new drummer for this, and it's it just seems like the Minnesota Timberwolves where Thibodeau doesn't know how to adapt to Cat and Wiggins. So how do I answer that? I bring in Derrick Rose. I bring in Taj Gibson. I bring in Luol Deng. Guys that I already know how to communicate with and how to deal with rather than looking at a problem saying, what do I need to fix here? And maybe coming at it in a different way that you didn't do in Chicago, where it's I don't see this team, the bottom line, I don't see this team being a team that competes this year. I don't see this as a team that competes next year because Derrick Rose is good. Taj is a good veteran. Teague is good. But I just don't see those being the pieces to bring the best out of Cat and Wiggins to a level that you want to be, which is hopefully a team that can compete in the West, which is tough as it is.
That's fair, but with already what's happened through 9 games for this team, I don't think the expectations should be playoffs.
It's just and let's see a better Wiggins and a better Cat.
And that's the thing is, I just want to see what this team is, and then we'll make expectations. Because right now the expectations are, let's go out and hopefully Wiggins and Cat can return to form. And with, let's go. I just want to go back to 2017, 2018. I'll use March because Jimmy Butler was totally out for that year, and I can only do it by months. March and October, because in October when that team first started, Jimmy wasn't really taking over that team. And it wasn't until they started losing when Jimmy took over that team and started seeing high usage. The 2 highest months of usage for Andrew Wiggins and Karl-Anthony Towns came in October and March of 2017-2018. 25.9 for Wiggins in October. That's in 7 games. And then in March, he had a 24.6 usage. And he put up pretty decent numbers, 42% from the field, 36% from 3 in October. And that was with I don't know, let's see, I can't do math. Whatever. Oh, it's right here. 19 points per game. And then in March, 43% from the field, 37% from three, and that was at like 18 points per game. And then Cat, he was averaging 24-11 on 25% usage in October. And then in March, he had a rating of 126 offensively and 110 defensively. And he was averaging 25, 12, and 2 on 26% usage. So I think Jimmy being off this team will help these kids. And I think having those veterans will help benefit them. And I know maybe it will be a power structure dynamic, but I think it's actually going to end up being good for them. And maybe next year will be the time where it's like, all right, we'll get rid of D Rose because maybe he will be too expensive, weirdly enough. We'll get rid of Taj Gibson because I think he only signed a 2-year deal. Yeah. And we'll get rid of Luol Deng because he's only on a 1-year deal. And we will make sure you guys are the leaders on this team because you just learned from leaders. You learned from D Rose. You learned from Luol Deng. You learned from Taj Gibson. You learned from guys who have been there before and have led teams to playoffs. Now it's your time. I think you're right though, Ricky. I don't think this team right now is anywhere near a playoff team because there's no semblance of a team. How is this team going to work even on the floor?
That's why I'm going heavy into the we're going to see this team lose another piece throughout the season. I think that if Derrick Rose's incredible play continues, that we look to see him get moved. I think that a team like the Suns would love to have a point guard, and I think that either he or Teague. I mean, the thing is, it's a toss-up. If you believe this team is going to win in the next 2 years, you can go one route or the other. I'm on the other half. I move the pieces that are valuable. I give young guys playing time, and I want to see this core develop because, like you said, while Cat and Wiggins can play well without Jimmy Butler there, they're not going to win fucking games. Yeah. And that's the thing that kills me is yes, they're going to develop their game, but they're not going to win. They're a 500 team at best without Jimmy Butler. So why are you forcing time onto guys who are in their 30s, who are not going to be there for these kids' prime? Get the young guys in there. Your 2 stars are 23 and 23. Let them play with guys their age and grow. Here
goes to what Ricky wants to keep bringing up, and I think it's something we should have probably hit on a little bit earlier, is the Tom Thibodeau question. Tom Thibodeau, putting young guys in the starting spotlight, getting rid of his older players, not going for it, seems out of his philosophy, seems out of his ability as a coach. That doesn't seem like what he's made for. So, at that point, should he be fired? And if you think he should be fired this year, when do you think that move should happen? Is it after the season? Is it mid-season? Should he be given a couple games? Should he be fired now? What are your thoughts on Tom Thibodeau's coaching future in Minnesota? And if he does get fired, when do you think that's going to happen? Ricky, I'll go to you first because you brought it up first.
Give it a while. And when I say a while, give it maybe at the most the trade deadline or All-Star break.
So February.
And the reason why I say that is if you do it now, it looks bad. It looks bad. It's a reactionary to the Jimmy Butler trade. But I think what should happen around All-Star break, hey, Tom, it ain't working out. Cut him. Get the interim in. And then at that point, all these coaching candidates that are looking for jobs, you then have a second half of the season for people to gain interest in that job because you are saying it's open for business.
The question I have for you, though, is although it does look bad, it's still based off performance. And if you're not happy with his performance, then I don't think it's it's a fireable offense to fire him because he held on to your star player, lowered his tank, his value, and also you're not meshing with the young player. So I don't think it's too crazy to fire him now. If you hold on to him until February, are you looking for something to change? Why are you holding on to him for February outside of PR reasons or bad look reasons?
Well, I mean, a little bit of it is PR, but a little bit of it too might be, all right, okay, Jimmy, right now, what was the problem? Is Thibodeau the problem? Was Jimmy the problem? Is Karl-Anthony Towns and Wiggins the problem? You don't know if Tom's the problem for sure. We all think he is the problem. But it's okay, Jimmy's gone. What can Tom do with what we have right now? See that for a little bit. And then if your answer, becomes answered, then you can go ahead and say, okay, he can be fired. We can now move along. The answer has been decided now that Jimmy is not there. Now we can move on from Tom Thibodeau, have the interim come in, and then have a new guy come in after the season.
Dave, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm closer to pulling the trigger on firing Tom than I think Ricky is. I would prefer it happens much sooner. I think that you have to set the standard, and it bugs me because the move basically, in my mind, I read into that move. Sorry, you're like going like full cocoon mode over there.
Hoodie, Sean.
The move says we're getting two guys who are one's in their prime, one's still a year out maybe. We'll see, but he's underperforming. And it's like instead of going that draft heavy class, I see they're trying to do something in the next year or two. Really concerns me is that means Tom could stay. In my mind, I think you move Tom, you move away from Tom, you move guys who have high value, who are not the long term picture, and that's. I would say probably Tom should go either within the next month of this or by the last possible chance is that trade deadline, because I don't want him anywhere near us and managing the front office if what he's done going up to that trade. That's the problem is if you go into the trade deadline with Tom Thibodeau, you're not going to get value for anything and you may not make a move. That's my concern is I don't want to be at that situation as a Timberwolves fan.
And here's another thing to go into it as well as if you fire Thibodeau, does it matter, and B, who's going to be your interim?
What do you mean by it doesn't matter?
Like, does it matter who the interim is? Do you just, any assistant, pick them, doesn't matter who it is, as long as it's not Tom Thibodeau?
Typically in those moves, it's somebody that you think will be the future head coach, or it's just somebody with like the most experience on that bench.
So if I'm looking at it, you've got Ryan Saunders, who was an assistant with the Wizards from 09 to 14, then 14 to now with the T-Wolves.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that's Flip's son.
Yes. I believe so. I believe you're right.
So obviously he has that connection to Minnesota.
So you've got then Andy Greer, who has a long coach. Like he's been a coach in college in the NBA since '83. He was with the Bulls with Thibodeau from 10 to 15. He was with the Raptors for 2 years before coming on in 2016. You got Ed Pickney, I believe is how you say it.
Correct.
College coach. He was with Thibodeau with the Bulls, and then you also have Rick Brunson, who with Thibodeau 2010, 2012, then the Bobcats, and now the T-Wolves. I look at these and I go, if you fire Thibodeau, it looks like based off of experience, it's either going to be Andy Greer or Ed Pickney. And really, I look at all these coaches and I go, Saunders is still young. I'm not sold on either Greer or Pickney being in. It's like, which interim do you think is going to get the most out of Cat and Wiggins and not going to stunt their growth? I don't know if I'm invested in any of these, even as an interim. That's why it's like, give me 2 months, and then it's less time with that interim with these two players.
And this is my idea of what's going to happen. I think by the start of 2019, let's say New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, whatever you want to say, Thibs is not fired as a coach, but he's relieved as his duties for basketball operations. Scott Layden takes over, and he is working under the direction of Glenn Taylor of, hey, move the valuable guys out.
So like what happened to Doc Rivers?
Yes, but Doc Rivers, it was mutual.
Yeah.
Doc Rivers gave up that position.
No, but like he's no longer that, and he is now just the head coach.
But this is not going to be mutual.
Yeah.
They are going to
you're
going to relieve Tom Thibodeau of his duties. And this way, when they start selling off those valuable pieces, they start possibly selling off a Derrick Rose, a Jeff Teague, if you could even call them valuable, then you're forcing Thibs to just coach, and you're forcing him into a situation he does not want to. And then by the end of the season, we are not firing Tom Thibodeau. We are mutually agreeing to split ways with Tom Thibodeau.
So you're just going to make life hell for him, so he leaves on his own.
Exactly. That way you don't have to at least, move away from him. You don't have to fire him per se, and you can just agree to separate mutually because this is not going to work out for the either of us. And one thing too as well is if you hire one of these coaches, typically as an interim, typically they are not brought back. And I think one thing, at least with Ryan Saunders, you don't want to do that. You don't want to make him the interim coach and let him walk or force him to leave as well, because he's been a guy that, obviously has that connection to Flip, and Flip is a guy that's massive in Minnesota and huge to their history as well. And, possibly they will keep him on for some reason. But also he's a young kid. He's the former son of a coach in the NBA. He might have potential as a future head coach. You just need to give him time. He's only 32 years old. So.
Also, I feel if you do go with the interim, he's the guy that you would go with because the other three coaches have all had connections to Thibodeau in Chicago. And you would, if you're firing Thibodeau, You want to move on from Thibodeau. You don't want to get an interim that, he was with Thibodeau in Chicago. He was in Thibodeau with Chicago. Like, you don't want that.
Saunders is a guy that, obviously he was with Wiggins before Wiggins was, before Wiggins was working with he worked with Cat and Wiggins before Thibodeau did, is my point.
Yeah.
He was there when they were rookies.
Right.
So obviously he has that connection. I just think what's going to happen is he's going to relieve his basketball president of operations. They're going to make the moves that they feel necessary are going to work for the franchise.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be a clean split, so you say, between Tom Thibodeau and the Minnesota Timberwolves. But what I want to get to now, and this will probably be the final talk, is what is the core of Minnesota looking like after this season? Who's going to be left on this team? What is going to be this team's future and possible expectations as well? So I'll go to Dave first. Who do you think is like for sure on this team going to stick around? Are there untouchables on this team? Do you think that there's, everyone's going to be up for trade offers? Like Cat, Wiggins going to be on the table. Even Dario and Rocco still going to be on the table, even though you just acquired them. What do you think is at least going to be, some faces that you will see in Minnesota next year?
I think you're still going to end up seeing Cat, Wiggins, Okogie, and Rocco. I think those four would probably be the best version of a starting lineup with Derrick Rose or Teague in there. Like, that gives them the best chance to win a game. I think Dario off the bench is a dangerous weapon, but I don't know if he has value there because, again, his value is very much in the air when he plays up to his expectation. Like, he was the best player in the playoffs for them last year. It was awesome. My expectations went sky high. This year, he's obviously looks a little sluggish. Like Jake had mentioned, maybe it's a thing because he played a lot of EuroLeague and he's just a little tired. He needs to get a shot and his legs back under him. But I think that they have their core. I think that's what their core is. They don't have a point guard who's going to be there when these guys are playing, and that's a little worrisome because
you trade him away to Chicago.
I mean, yeah. So Derrick Rose is basically he's done after this year unless you pay him. Like, he's on a 1-year deal, and Teague's gonna take a player option for $19 million because I can't see anyone paying Jeff Teague more than $19 million for a long-term deal. So I think they need to go figure out if they can move those guys. I don't think anybody's gonna want Teague, but Rose's contract's valuable. He's playing amazingly. So if you're not gonna re-sign him for a long term, and I don't think he lines up with their window, so I wouldn't. I think you got to move him, get value, because what they've got is 5 players right now who could potentially fit. And I like it because Julius Randle is basically the version of Dario on this team. We'd be able to see Robert Covington swing over to the 4. Well, he's known for being a 3 and D3. He has the size to play against 4s. He can body them on the perimeter. He might get a little outweighed down low, but you can get help down there. It's okay. So I like the lineup of going with an Okogie, Wiggins, Rocco, Cat, and then having Dario be your 6-man off the bench, a la Randall. I think that's the core. I think that can do well. You just don't have a point guard who matches the timeline. And they need to address that.
Yeah.
For me, the one thing I want to add before I answer it is the thing also with the Thibodeau thing, and my answer is you give them that 2 months to see, all right, you don't have Jimmy. Are you going to use guys to force them to give maybe Keita Bates-Diop some more minutes, some Josh Okogie, and get him in rotations?
Diop as well. I know he's still on the roster. No, it's more of we still have to look back on. This was a guy that was in all of our mock drafts in round 1.
Yep.
He fell all the way to, I think, pick 44. So not only were I think there was issues with his personality, but also we might not sure if he's 100% healthy, and that might be one reason why he's not playing. So I'm not going to put fully that on Tibbs. If
Diop
is not playing.
If he is healthy.
He got dumped down to the G League.
We all know
5 hours ago.
We all know Thibodeau. I just look at it. We all know Thibodeau and rookies. Thibodeau don't like playing rookies, and is that going to change? But to answer the question, I look at Cat, Wiggins, Dario, Rocco, Okogie, and then Keita Bates is kind of on the outside. But those main 5, those are the guys that I look at of, all right, they are staying for next year. Everyone else is open. Everyone else is either open for trades, moving around, and how do I build around these 5? The 2 that I brought in from Philly, the 2 that I have there in Cat and Wiggins, and Okogie, who I drafted in the 1st round last year.
I feel like whatever, since we're doing this, we just keep whittling down from person. So Dave's like, oh, you keep these people, and then you're like, oh, no, we'll shrink it a little bit.
Do you want?
I think there's 2 people that you
can
really keep. No, not even. It's Cat and Okogie.
Okay.
I mean, this is. I mean,
Wiggins hasn't proved.
Who's going to want Wiggins' contract?
Well, here I'm not saying that. I'm just saying If you can move it, you should move it.
Okay.
If you have the ability to move it, even if you're getting garbage value, even if it's only like a second-round draft pick.
No.
I think there should be, at least if it's, not maybe just a second, but if it's floated out there, you don't need that contract underneath you. And I think the player that you're going to go after is the guy who's younger and the guy who's shown himself to be a top 5 player at his position at his best in Karl-Anthony Towns. Wiggins at his best is not a top 5 forward. Like that, I think we can all agree on that. He's not a top 5-3 or a top 5-2 at his best. And Cat at his best is a top 5 player at his position. Correct. Whether that's power forward, whether that's center, he has just a weird knack to score the ball no matter where he is on the floor. He's extremely gifted on the offensive end. And Okogie is a guy that I thought was a massive sleeper last year. I love tooting my horn on this podcast. We loved him last year. I thought he was going to be a stud. He has been a stud so far. I think you got to keep him. He's a guy that's a first-rounder. He's going to be under contract for a very long time. You have control over him. There's no reason to get rid of a kid like that.
Yeah.
Wiggins, he's on his big boy contract. He hasn't been proving it. If there's a deal out there that's going to get that contract off your books, I think you should do it. Because Cat's going to be locked up. Cat already signed his extension. You got to keep him around. You got to keep Okogie around. But other than that, I don't see an argument for everybody else. Because Bates Diop, I mean, in my opinion, he can stay or he can go. I don't think he's going to be the franchise changer. Robert Covington, yes, he's a guy that is on a great contract, 4 years, $47 million. But not only is that great for your team, that's great for other teams, like playoff teams. Yeah. And if you can get rid of that and get valuable assets like a first, why wouldn't you do that? I mean, if you're going to get a lotto protected first-round pick for Robert Covington Jr., or I think it's Jr., well, he's fucking Jr. now. If you can get, I think he's a third. If you can get a pick though for Rocco, you should go and do that. If you can get a pick for Dario, you should go and do that because I don't think those are going to be guys on your team that are going to be winning you a championship. So the only 2 guys that I would say are untouchable, and I think it's going to make it easier to deal with your team, would be Karl-Anthony Towns and would be Josh Okogie. Because in my opinion, I wouldn't trade those guys. I think everybody else is movable though.
Do you think Tyus Jones ever gets a fair chance to run the one with this team? Like, he's the guy who's always like, he was the advanced metrics kid that all the like NBA hipsters were like, oh yeah, he should run it really. Like, our team plays better with Jeff Teague off the floor. And like, there's always like in short minutes, he's looked okay. He's looked at times good, at times bad. But everybody like, it's always that guy who everybody just, you love the second guy. It's like the backup quarterback in the NFL. He's always better.
Unless
Doesn't matter.
It's Nathan Peterman.
Yeah, unless it's Nathan Peterman. Well, until you see what he can do, he's always better.
Exactly. I mean, he was the guy that they signed A.J. McCarron and they're like, it's Peterman, kid. We got to get rid of A.J. McCarron.
He is blowing A.J. McCarron out the water.
Here's something I want to throw out here. And really, it brings me back. This is the last thing I'll bring
Remember
up.
Ryan Mallett? That kid was a fucking dandy before he was like caught with like 4 DUIs. It was horrible at football.
But let's throw this out. And I think back to something Bill Self said where I can't remember what I was watching, CBS or something. They were like, oh, well, when we talked to Bill Self, 2013-2014 season, everyone wanted to go over and look at Wiggins. And he's like, I was talking to Self, and Self said, no, that's the guy right there. And it's just Embiid taking shots. And he goes, no, that's the guy that's going to be the next player from this team to do something in the NBA. What would have happened? I'm going back in the Wayback Machine.
We already did this because Cat and Karl-Anthony Towns.
I just want to ask this
Embiid
question.
And Karl-Anthony Towns.
I just want to ask this question.
Okay.
What would it be like if the Cavs took Joe instead of Wiggins?
Oh, the Cavs?
Because the Cavs.
No, because that's what we said. Is we talked about that already. Because then Joe would have gone to Cleveland, and it would have been Karl-Anthony Towns and Joel Embiid on the same team. Because they would have
traded still for
100%.
Caleb, yeah.
Because they still valued him the same way, and Joel Embiid wasn't going to
play. Yeah.
So I mean, I think Minnesota was going to take anything for that, and they would have had Joel Embiid and Karl-Anthony Towns. I think this was on a podcast like a month ago.
Yeah,
I mean, it was fairly recently that we talked about this, and I was like, "Holy shit! Could you imagine it?" And then I DM'd Jake, and he was like, "Holy shit, that'd be crazy."
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I know the whole Joe because they went
because then they would have been stuck with like Jabari Parker. I think.
Well,
the Sixers.
That's the thing. Do you?
Yeah.
That's a different change. Is since they would have Joe, they would make that trade. Would they then say, we're not going to go with Cat, we're going to go with D'Angelo Russell at 2? And would it change and ripple
they still take
that
Cat.
way?
Cat was still the best player.
And Cat was healthy.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a guarantee that Cat was, there wasn't a guarantee that Joe was healthy, and also Karl-Anthony Towns was still the best player in that draft.
Cat was the best player going into that draft.
Yep.
Phil Jackson showed us who the best player right now is probably from the top few picks.
Disagree.
I don't know.
I'd still take Cat.
KP is not healthy.
Yeah,
Back to the shit that actually matters in this discussion now.
Yeah, healthy though, I'll still take Cat over KP.
I kind of want to go back to this trade and knock it down a notch because they still have Gorgie Dang's contract in there.
Yeah, but they weren't going to get rid of him. Like contract-wise, they were not going to be able to push him out to Philadelphia because he's got too many years on it.
It's a really bad deal, and they're still like, I just look at that. I went to Spot Rec, and I was like, how many? Oh God, that many. They're paying him too much money. Like, I'm sorry. Between the 27, 9, 31, 33 for Wiggins, and then you've got Gorgie sitting at 16, 17 for the next 2 years. It's like, oh no, please God, shoot me. Like they need to move, either go one way or the other. Either eat more bad contracts, or move the bad contracts.
Well, that's what I think. Is like
you gotta do something. You can't sit with this team as is. I think that's my problem.
That's why if a Tyus Jones is intriguing, it's like, hey, Phoenix, if you want Tyus Jones, if you want a kid who needs a change of scenery, just take on Gorgie Dieng. I don't know if they will be able to do that salary cap wise.
Easily.
Well,
it's
no,
Phoenix.
but they took on Ryan Anderson. And they just bought out Tyson Chandler. Like, I don't know if salary cap wise.
I'm going with it's Phoenix still. Numbers will make sense.
I'm just saying, like, I think that's what the deal is going to be. If you can take some of these guys with potential, that's why no one's off limits outside of Cat.
Do you think a team like the Spurs takes a runner at Derrick Rose? If they're, if we're looking at like January and they're still in the playoff running?
I think honestly that might be their most valuable asset right now. I mean, outside of maybe Wiggins. If a team has enough if a team has enough cap room and we're just basing them strictly off talent and potential, then
I feel like
Wiggins,
Brooklyn like 2 years ago would have been happy to pick up Wiggins, but
yeah, like Wiggins is their most valuable. But I think D Rose, if he continues to perform at this level,
he's shooting
it's not
incredibly.
Yeah, it's not for sure certain that he's going to do this.
Yeah.
But if he does continue to look at this, I 100% think that playoff teams are going to start looking at him. They have no reason not to.
Yeah.
He's worth $2.3 million. And
you
how is he going to hurt you?
And him on that the Spurs team. We even rumored that during the offseason when he hadn't signed officially. But yeah, I don't know. I just think that's. They're in contract hell. I couldn't believe how much money they've spent.
Yeah, so that's the gist of the Minnesota deal. We talked about the future core, Tom Thibodeau's future, how the deal works for them right now. I don't think any Minnesota Timberwolves fan really expects them to make the playoffs, even with Jimmy Butler. We didn't mock them to be in the playoffs, even with Butler, because obviously the uncertainty, and I don't think the talent's there.
Robert Covington, Dario Saric, and a 2022 second-round pick for Zach LaVine, Lauri Markkanen, and the real KD. That's got to hurt.
Yeah.
That's got to hurt a lot.
Well, and that's, again, why I don't really trust Minnesota with four
an eighth round
picks.
And an eighth spot in the Western Conference in the first round elimination.
Well, then also you have to throw in Justin Patton was on that deal as well. So,
he was part of the deal. He was moved twice straight over. So
no, but I was just saying,
yeah, because that was the 16th pick, and then he went straight over to Philly. So it's a straight up. That's a trade straight up.
So he just cancels himself out?
Pretty much, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Because the Minnesota's not gaining anything.
Yeah.
All right. But even going back to that Butler deal, I'm saying like that was just a bad deal.
And now it looks even worse.
Yeah. Well, even then, if we were judging it off of last year before LaVine even stepped on the floor, I think we were saying Minnesota won it.
I mean, at this point, I'll say thank you to Minnesota.
Change. We don't know what's going to happen.
I said I'll say thank you to Minnesota. I mean, I like the Bulls team. We're not going to win a championship.
After he signed the 4-year, $80 million contract, were you thanking Minnesota?
No. But right now, at this point, after I've seen him on the
Kings
court,
are looking like fucking geniuses across the board right now.
Could you imagine them with LaVine?
Jesus Christ.
Or Papagiannis.
What? They already had Papa
John. No, I know. They cut him. That's what I'm saying. They should have kept him.
No. No.
They already have enough centers.
No.
Anyways, let us know your thoughts on the Minnesota side of this Jimmy Butler trade. I think it was obviously done too late because I was demanding Tibbs to be fired even before he even made the trade. So I was probably even demanding him to be fired even before the trade request was even made. But let us know your thoughts. Do you think Minnesota screwed up? Do you think they actually have a good deal in place? Because obviously now they have Rocco and Dario, guys that could be even traded a little bit later on. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below.